We starting or oh, hey everybody, how you doing? Didn't see you there. This is Tekking101 and welcome back to the rise and fall of 4Kids Entertainment. You know, it's funny, I was reading the comments from the last video and a lot of them were like, "Wait, whoa, Tekking. 4Kids had a rise? I thought they were just non-stop total fail, like flatlining, just the entire way through." No, I mean, they definitely did have a rise. To say that they were like a failing company from day one is just not true. I mean, like I said, they were responsible for bringing Pokemon into the United States. They really built up that mountain and then planted that flag right at the top. Subsequently, they just tumbled down it, you know, slowly at first. It was a little bit of a stumble, then it was like, oh shit, and then it just started crashing down the mountain and then into the dark abyss below. But, you know, before that, they were kind of on top of the world. Alright, so this will be part 2. We're gonna go into Alfred Kahn, who is the CEO of 4Kids. So he was the one that was really at the top of the company when all this really big stuff happened, when they started bringing anime over into the States, you know, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Ultimate Muscle, TMNT. That's something I actually forgot to mention last time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2003 version. That was the version I grew up personally, and I loved it. So yeah, we're going to take a look at an interview that he did back in 2006, and maybe we'll get a little bit more of a better look into how the company operated, and some of the decisions that were rather controversial, and see where they actually came from. And then the last part of this is we're going to talk about the fall of 4Kids, you know, where they're at right now, what really happened to them with the lawsuit and everything, and them filing for bankruptcy, actually filing for bankruptcy twice. So we'll get into that. But first, just some notes from the first video. Nothing really that crazy that I missed, which is good. This is something I'm obviously not used to doing, like not really a review of an anime, but a review of like an entire company that's been around since the 70s. So I did as much research as I could, but I'm like worried I'm gonna miss some major points here. Nobody really mentioned anything crazy that I missed. There was just some things brought up involving Westernization. So the first thing, and I should have known this, but I didn't, I apologize. 4Kids was not only responsible for bringing anime over to the United States. Alright, it was called Westernization, as in the Western world. There were a lot of 4Kids properties that were in Europe, and I had a lot of my European fans messaging me like, hey Tekking, you know, we grew up with a lot of this stuff as well. In some cases, they didn't even really have any other options other than 4Kids, depending on where you were living, and there was even a United Kingdom branch of 4Kids Entertainment. Spoiler alert, it's no longer operational, but it did exist at one point. So I think when they were bringing stuff over and they were changing things around, that Westernization, you know, like, well, we can't have them saying rice balls or onigiri, it has to be jelly donuts. That wasn't just changing things around to be more American, that was changing things around to be more marketable in just the Western hemisphere of the world itself. And you know, like I said, there was some edits they had to make, and this goes back to even like a video I made on Yu-Gi-Oh! A while ago. So in Yu-Gi-Oh!, I mean, apart from the references of like death and like, you know, Bakura sending people to hell and things, so maybe they had the same kind of mentality going into it with a lot of other properties like One Piece and Pokemon, like, we're gonna change all this stuff around so there's like very minimal references to the Japanese culture as least as we can get away with, right? Obviously there's some references you just can't avoid, like last time I mentioned that episode, there's actually a few episodes of the Pokemon anime where the group is wearing like Japanese garb, like yukata or whatever, and it's just like, okay, well, we can't get really around that, but we're gonna remove any references to like Japanese food, or if there's Japanese characters, we gotta remove all of that. Like I said, I mean, my position on it hasn't really changed from the last time. It's pretty much like this. I'm like, you could have probably left in a few references to Japanese culture or a few Japanese words, and I really don't think that would have mattered. I don't think that it would have confused as many kids as you think it might have. Once again, I'm not privy to this information. Maybe they did have a focus group at one point, and the kids were confused in the focus group. Like, why did they say that word? I don't understand what an onigiri is. You know, it'd be like, okay, we gotta change the words around. I'm not sure, but like I said, I think you could have left those words in every now and then. There could have been references to Japanese culture, and I think it would have been fine. But yeah, it wasn't just westernizing it to America in particular, it was multiple countries, okay? That's really what 4Kids was attempting to do there. So yeah, now moving on to then part 3. So yeah, with that being said though, I'm now gonna move on to part 3, where we talk about... Okay, I had to. I'm not even a fan of Star Trek. I've never even seen Star Trek 2, but his last name is Khan. I had to make the joke. Okay, yeah, Trekkies, be with me. All right. So, Al Khan, before he was the CEO of 4Kids, he was actually in licensing for a very long time before that. He was actually head of licensing for Coleco. That's right, the company that created the single greatest gaming console ever, the ColecoVision. So you know this guy has a pedigree that is more valuable than any other, like, title of nobility on the planet, alright? But no, yeah, he became the CEO of 4Kids in 1991, and he left in 2011, so he was there for when, you know, Pokemon became big, when the company really got on the map. So it's sort of like a double-edged sword, though, for him, where you could look at Al Khan at being like, man, this guy's a genius, you know, he knew, you know, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all these properties would be huge in the western part of the world, so he brought them over and he made 4Kids all this money and made them like a huge property and everybody knew their name. This guy is awesome. But then the other side of that sword is like, wait, this guy is also the one responsible for all the edits, all the censorship, taking away the boobs, all of the westernization crap. That was all on him. That was all on Al Khan. How dare he? The 4Kids rap from One Piece. That was all from his mind. So it's sort of like he's kind of like, it's the same situation with like any head of any company. You know, you're always going to look to the head of the company and like, you're responsible for everything this company did that I hate. So we already talked about the FCC last time. We already talked about like censorships like boobs and blood and violence. Yeah, that's not on Al Khan. That's not on the 4Kids side of things. That was all on the FCC and standards and practices, okay? Nothing they could really have done about that. And we're going to go into an interview that Al Khan did in 2006 where he even brings that up. But yeah, bringing up the westernization stuff, I mean, I would definitely say, I mean, I know for a fact, just considering the way he answered these questions in the interview, that Al Khan had a big role in that whole westernization part of it. So, yeah, let's just dive right in. Now, this was an interview he did with Anime News Network back in 2006, which, you know, was a while ago, but this was right in the middle of what everything was going on with 4Kids. You know, like 2005 was when the One Piece dub aired on there. I was still probably watching 4Kids. In fact, I know I was still watching 4Kids at that point. I was at least watching One Piece, and they were having like syndicated reruns of Pokemon on Cartoon Network at that point. I remember when 4Kids, they started licensing Pokemon and they did not air on Cartoon Network. I believe they aired on Kids WB because, you know, the Fox, you know, Foxbox, Kids WB stuff, that's like their kind of deal there. But eventually Pokemon did start airing on Cartoon Network alongside Yu-Gi-Oh! And that wasn't until a few years later. And I didn't have Kids WB growing up, so I'd have to go down my grandparents to watch it or get the VHS tapes. But yeah, I was definitely watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and One Piece and Ninja Turtles at this point in 2006. So, the first question that we're going to cover here, he did more questions than this, and the link is below and all that stuff, but we're just going to tackle a few of the more important ones here. So the question is, what attributes should a property have before you consider bringing it over to the West? Al Khan's answer is, we look at things such as popularity, but also if it has a merchandising component. If we can license it, you know, can we license the products for it? That's really the main issue for us, the playing pattern. If it's popular and how it merchandises. If we can't merchandise it, it really doesn't have a lot of interest for us. That is very apparent in all of the properties that 4Kids really had at this time. Pokemon. Massive merch opportunities for that. Going beyond just the simple stuff like I talked about before with like the figurines, you know, like, you know, here's a Psyduck plushie, you know, there's a Pokeball, you know, all that stuff. Just all the stuff like you could get in the stores, like when Pokemania was at its height, like the Pokemon cereals and Pokemon granola bars, I'm sure they probably had back then. You know, all that stuff, really big for merchandising. Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, has a huge merchandising component with the card game and all that stuff. Really big thing with that. Pokemon, same deal with their card game. TMNT, I remember having a lot of figurines for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles lineup. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, started in the 80s, you know, right around the time where Thundercats and, you know, Transformers and all that stuff was going on. And as we mentioned, you know, a lot of times with those shows, I don't know if it was TMNT in particular. Actually, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that started with a comic book originally, so it might have not have went down that line. But a lot of times it was, you know, come up with the toy line first and then kind of build a show, you know, based around the toys rather than the other way around. And TMNT back in the 80s and the 90s, you know, they had a huge cast of characters, so many toys toys for you to buy, and the 2003 Ninja Turtles incorporated a lot of those characters from the 80s series back into this, just with like a new design and new toys to buy and new DVDs. I remember buying some of the new, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like 2003. I remember buying some of the DVD box sets back then, so that's a huge component. But hey, if you want a perfect example of the merchandising component from 4Kids, if 4Kids looking at something and just being like, man, we want to merchandise the crap out of this, look no further than in 2006 when the most amazing anime hit the scene, Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters. Admit it, you all forgot about that. I thought I forgot about that. I was doing research and I'm like, oh, Capsule Monsters, oh, shit, that was a thing? That was a real thing? I thought that was like, when I was like 13 years old in 2006, I had a really bad fever. I had like a stomach sickness and I had a fever. I was bedridden for a few days, man. I thought like that was a fever dream or something. Like, Capsule Monsters, what? Okay, so, this might surprise you. It certainly surprised me. Capsule Monsters, unlike all the other properties, was not something that, existed in Japan for a long time before it got brought over here to the States. It wasn't like, Pokemon. Pokemon was airing for a good solid year or so in Japan before it started airing on American television, right? And it was definitely aimed, it was created for the Japanese audience and everything before we licensed it, right? Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters was a series. It was animated by the same studios that did Yu-Gi-Oh! But it was commissioned by 4Kids. 4Kids contacted the animation company and everybody in Japan that owned the rights to Yu-Gi-Oh! And all that stuff, and they're like, we want you to create a Yu-Gi-Oh! Miniseries. Here it is. And they gave them the concept for it and what it was going to be and everything. And they did it. And they gave it to us, and we aired it here. It only lasted, I think there was like a movie, and when I say a movie, I think it was like the first 3 or 4 episodes of the series just grouped together in one run, and then there were a few episodes after that, so there was like a dozen episodes total or whatever. I did not rewatch Capsule Monsters for the sake of this video, because I watched it once when I was 13, and that was enough for the rest of my life. I know Civet, he did a whole retrospective on it, so go check that out. But no, like, if you look, and even back when I was a kid, I saw what it was immediately. If you were blessed from not watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters, I'll tell you the premise immediately. Are you ready for it? It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Meets Pokemon. That's what it is, 100%. It's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Gang getting stuck in South America, and they have, like, special gauntlets on them that allow them to capture monsters that are wandering the wild, and they just, Tristan and Taya and Yugi and Joey, they all have these things, and they capture all these monsters, and they use the monsters to fight for them. Of course, the monsters they capture are dual monsters from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Mixing with Pokemon. It was, I think, 4Kids sitting down and thinking like, hey guys, we've got a lot of money over the years from all these franchises that we've done and everything. How about we take Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and we just make a series all about that, and that'll sell like hotcakes. It didn't. I'm pretty sure it didn't do too well, but hey, I mean, like, just from a marketing standpoint, it's just like, this thing's really good. This thing's really good at marketing. Let's just take them together, see what happens. But yeah, that was not something Japan created and then we licensed later. That was something 4Kids directly commissioned. I kind of wonder what the people that were, like, animating it and the people over at Japan were thinking of when they were given that opportunity. Like, it's like, we'll take them. I mean, 4Kids paid them. And it's like, okay, you're paying us to make this series. We'll do it. But I was wondering if anyone's like, this is a really... They're reading the scripts and, like, what they have to animate and everything. It's like, this is a really weird idea. Like, freaking Americans. Like, I don't know. But, anyway, it didn't go off. It wasn't the mega hit that they expected. But yeah, I find that pretty funny that they they did that. All right, that's Capsule Monsters. All right. So next question. A lot of aspects in your adaptations are changed from the original Japanese version. Some things like dialogue, credits, names, but also music. All this stuff is redone. Why do you feel this is necessary? Alcon's response is, only to make it more Western. We Westernize it so that children in English-speaking countries will understand it, and to us that is very critical. It's a mixture of Westernization, the trying to make the music appeal to kids who are in the United States. Okay, so, when you're talking about music, I'm assuming mostly they're talking about the opening themes of these shows. And you know what, I can understand that. I can understand, you know, okay, there's an entire opening to this Japanese anime that's all in Japanese. We should maybe change that over into English, okay? You know, I guess I could argue that point by, like, you know, watching Japanese opening isn't always necessarily about understanding the lyrics. It's about, like, just getting excited for the show. But, I mean, that's the point, to get excited for the show you're about to watch, and the 4Kids Yu-Gi-Oh! Opening, you know, it's time to do-do-do-do-duel. That certainly gets you hyped for the show. It got me hyped for the show. The Pokemon opening is pretty much iconic at this point. It's had so many remixes, so many redones. That was a great opening. And even the One Piece rap, which there's actually a question about that later on. We'll get to that. But even the One Piece rap, you know, when I was a kid, I loved it. And then when I was getting into teenage age, I kind of was like, that sucked. But then, you know, I didn't think it sucked. I really did like it. I mean, I had this old tape recorder growing up. This was before I had a cell phone. This was when I had an old tape recorder with a cassette tape in it, and I would just do things that kids do with a tape recorder. I'd record my voice and just be like, blue, you know, I'd just do stupid stuff with it, but I would also record things off the TV that I liked, like songs and stuff. And so I remember I recorded the 4Kids rap of the One Piece, you know, ya yo, and I would walk around town listening to the theme with my, like, old Walkman cassette player, and I don't know why I'm admitting that, but I like the rap, okay? So the point of an opening is to get you excited, get you pumped for the show. That's what the 4Kids openings did when I was a little kid, so mission accomplished, I suppose. The question I would ask, Alcon, is what about all of the soundtrack? You know, the OSTs and stuff in the shows, like in Yu-Gi-Oh!, like Passionate Duelist, which is like Yugi's theme. How come you swapped all that music out with all this new music? A lot of times the music sounds rather stock. I mean, you might get a few, you know, themes that are really, like, well-known and stuff, but for the most part, it's just kind of like incidental ambient music. Nothing really that, like, sticks out. Why would you swap out that stuff for that? Considering also, I mean, I'm sure they did use stock music a lot of times for their shows, but other times they had to compose their own music and stuff, and you wonder, like, you know, if 4Kids was about, like, trying to save money and stuff, you know, get the most bang for your buck, you know, you would have to, like, pay money for composers to make new soundtracks when you could just be using the original soundtracks from the show. So that's the question I would ask. But I think I have the answer. At least I have a hypothesis on why they did that. So this is with Yu-Gi-Oh! In particular, because I'm a lot more familiar with both versions of that show, because I've seen a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh!, like the original Japanese version and the dubbed version. If you listen to the soundtrack in the Japanese version of Yu-Gi-Oh!, like I said, there's a lot of really good soundtracks that are like Passionate Duelist, but there's a lot more time when there's no soundtrack playing during a duel. It'll just be characters drawing cards and just, you know, that's it. And whenever the soundtracks do queue up, a lot of them are a lot more just subtle, you know, not big bombastic themes and stuff like that. My point is, maybe if you're a kid, you would find it less exciting, okay? What 4Kids did, I think, is they basically, whenever a character is dueling, you know, there's very few moments during duels where there's, like, no music playing. There's usually either, like, the demonic soundtrack going on with, like, Merrick, like, dawn, 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 you know, or there's the Pharaoh's theme, like, do, 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 do. I love all those soundtracks. They're really good, and they stick in my mind a lot better than a lot of the Japanese soundtracks do, other than the most, like, the large largest ones, like the main theme of Yugi or Jaden. You know, those ones stick in my mind really well. But other than that, the soundtracks I always think of with Yu-Gi-Oh! When dueling is like the Exodia theme and stuff like that, like from the 4Kids dub. So I would ask him about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the reason, you know, just to make it more exciting and invigorating. Also, it's a show about card games, so the music is gonna play a really vital role there, because when you're at the end of the day just throwing cards down, right? And going back, I'll watch a lot of scenes. Like just the other day, I watched the scene where Yugi was dueling Mai. I did a comparison between the 4Kids and the original. Okay, so in the original, Yugi draws the Blackluster Ritual, and he throws that down and summons Blackluster Soldier, and Passionate Duelist is playing in the background. Great. In the 4Kids dub, there's like a rendition of, it's not the exact same theme, but it's a very similar theme, like a remix of the Exodia theme. And I just find that way more exciting, like when Yugi draws the card and he's like, well, Mai, you put up a good fight, but now the duel ends. Starting with this card, Blackluster Ritual, and he just throws that down, and Blackluster Soldier pops out and just slices them down, and the soundtrack was way more impactful than the original. I love Passionate Duelist. Passionate Duelist is a great theme, but like that, because I guess that was the first version I saw growing up, it was a lot more powerful there. The God card theme, you know, that orchestral choir thing whenever Yugi summons Slifer, or, you know, Kaiba throws down Obelisk, like that was something that was a lot more powerful to me. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to the soundtrack, I mean, their ideas for renditions and doing stuff, like I said, there was a lot of stuff that was kind of stock, but like the God card theme and the Exodia theme and the Pharaoh's theme, all that stuff really powerful. There was even a CD. In fact, it was the very first CD I ever bought in my entire life, because I wasn't really that into like contemporary music growing up. Not like Yu-Gi-Oh's contemporary, but I wasn't into like, you know, typical stuff that was on the radio at the time. But they came out with a CD, Music to Duel By, and I remember, you know, having my dad buy that for me at Walmart and listening to it in my room. And like, yeah, there's even some, honestly, going back and watching some 4Kids episodes, there's even some soundtracks in the background that you just can't find anywhere on YouTube or anywhere. Like, they just don't exist. And I kind of wish they did, because there were some soundtracks that were really good. Like, there was a theme when, in the Legendary Heroes arc, when Yugi and Mokuba and Joey go into that virtual world to rescue Kaiba, and they're in the cemetery, and like Armored Zombie and Clown Zombie, they all walk out behind the graves. There's this really kicking, kind of like a hip-hop, like zombie theme in the background. I don't even really how to describe it, but it's really catchy, and I wish there was more of it. You know, there's a lot of really talented people on YouTube that can recreate musical tracks, so somebody recreate that scene and that soundtrack for the... So somebody recreate that soundtrack for the love of God. It's really good, all right? I will pay you money for this, okay? Yeah, I would love to use it in my videos, to be honest with you. It's a catchy soundtrack, all right? So that makes sense there. He brings up the Westernization, but I think I've already kind of mentioned that enough times. Oh, there's a question. I'm not going to read the whole question because it's kind of long, but it's regarding the success of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Shaman King over here. And I just want to say that, and this is something I didn't mention last time, when Shaman King was being dubbed, I never watched Shaman King. I never saw a single episode of Shaman King. I'm sure it was good. I never watched it. But I heard that the way they dubbed Shaman King was actually a little bit less censorship than a lot of their other properties, like, you know, when it was Shaman King, and some parents were actually complaining to the company about Shaman King and the way that it was being dubbed over here. I'm not really, like I said, I didn't see the show, so I don't know in particular what they left in. Maybe probably just more violence and more fights and stuff, because the FCC still have limitations, but maybe something like that with Shaman King. I'm gonna say that if 4Kids was confronted with the complaints of, like, the parents, they would probably end up taking that a lot more seriously than the complaints of, like, anime fans. You know, anime fans coming to the complaint, like, you changed the soundtrack of One Piece, I'm mad at you, versus a bunch of parents coming up to the company and being like, hey, there's too much violence in this show, I'm not gonna let my kid watch this anymore. I'm thinking, like, if they were faced with those two extremes, they would probably, you know, pay more attention to the parents rather than the anime fan. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up with Shaman King, because I did hear that the Shaman King of the 4Kids dub, I mean, there were still things they changed, but not as much as other series. He talks about the uncut releases a little bit. I brought that up with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Uncut release. In here, he basically says that's like, hey, yeah, we're going to be coming out with the uncut versions of these shows. He even mentions in here that, like, yeah, there should be an uncut version of, like, is there a possibility of an uncut release of One Piece? He's like, yes, definitely. Is there a time frame for when it might come out? Not sure, but we're definitely looking at it. So, like I said, this was in '06. This was like a year after One Piece started airing, right? To my knowledge, I have not seen it. I saw the uncut versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! That were out there. I have not seen these uncut versions of One Piece. It's very possible that they were in fact made, like they were dubbed, and they exist, but they were never released in DVD. At least the uncut versions of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, those were released. At least the first 3 volumes, the first 9 episodes were released in uncut, so you can watch them. I even put the link down there last time. I'll put it down there below. But as far as I know, anyway, those One Piece uncut 4Kids versions, they aren't out there in the zeitgeist. They never created VHS tapes or DVDs of them. They probably exist maybe somewhere in a basement. It's all dusty, and it's just like 4Kids One Piece uncut version. It's like a drawer with like the first 10 episodes of One Piece that are dubbed a different way than they were in the 4Kids version, like that we saw on TV. But other than that, yeah, nothing. Let's see. Okay, this is the question about the rap. Okay. At a licensing convention last year, this would have been in '05, where 4Kids revealed a first look at One Piece, a version of the Japanese opening with English vocals was played. Yes, that is in fact true, and you can actually see that version on YouTube. It was the first 4Kids version of We Are, so come aboard and bring along all your hopes and dreams. Yeah, you can actually see it on YouTube, like the first opening of One Piece dubbed, just with English lyrics. The rap didn't exist at this point. And so the question here is, how come you swapped out that opening with the rap? His name's Zolo, he's just like a samurai. And Alcon's answer is, yeah, well, we liked it, we thought it was good, and we thought it was going to be something that have a lot of popularity. There wasn't anything more to it than that. All right, Alcon. Okay, I can't be too mad at the guy because he was kind of right. I mean, like, we kind of pushed it back for a while, but me, and I know a lot of, I know Roger likes the opening. I know a lot of people come to me and say, you know what, Tekking, I kind of do like the One Piece rap. I mean, it is kind of catchy. It does kind of get you pumped up. I mean, does it take the spirit of the original show and does it kind of screw it up a little bit? I mean, yeah, a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, it's a catchy beat and it got you excited to watch the show. So I can't be mad at him. But on the contrary to that, I just want to say his reasoning for it, I feel like that should have been tested a little bit, like the opening for your show. It's like, we have this opening, it's the version of We Are, it's ready to go, and then somebody else did this rap. Like, he almost makes it seem like it was like a joke at first. Like, they got somebody to do a rap, and he's like, hey, Alcon, we got someone to do a rap of the One Piece opening just for yucks. Listen to it. And, he's like, all right, and he listens to it, and it's like, you know what? This is actually pretty good. You know what? Screw it. Throw it in there. Make it the opening. Who cares? It's for kids. I feel like that was sort of like what he was saying here. It's just like, yeah, well, we had this opening ready to go. That was the original opening of the anime. But for this, let's just do it. Why not? So I feel like that shouldn't be the way you should do this. You shouldn't just do things on a whim like that. But it ended up working out, so whatever. That's the reason. In case you were ever curious why the rap exists, well, we liked it. That's the answer the CEO of the company gave. Oh, man, all right. So, this is just another question about the uncut version. Like, on a similar note, do you have any intentions of releasing any other Japanese series in their original format? And he's like, yeah, we expect every series we license to have a release in its original form. That didn't really pan out. We all know that didn't pan out. And finally, last question here. Is there anything you'd like to say to the 4Kids naysayers in the anime fandom? It's also important to mention in 2006, obviously the anime YouTube existed, but the anime community probably very sparse, if non-existent at that point. Like, who even existed back in 2006 that would even be making videos on, like, YouTube? Like, I think For Neverworld didn't pop in until around 2010 or 2009. I popped in 2011. Giguk might have been around. He might have been around back then, because I think he started his first channel in 2006 or 2007. He was really early on. Mr. Anime, but we don't really talk about Mr. Anime anymore. Yeah, but beyond that, I mean, there were probably a few other ones back then that long ago, but the community certainly wasn't as much of existence as it is right now, obviously, right? You know, there wasn't that many people talking about it. But, you know, there were forums, you know, there were websites that had forums and stuff before social media really blew up with Twitter and Facebook, YouTube. You would just go on local forums. You know, here's an anime forum, go on there and talk about, you know, one particular anime or anime in general. And it was on these forums that I think a lot of this hate for 4Kids originated from. He's like, I can't believe they're doing all this crap with our anime. But now, I mean, Funimation took over a lot of dubbing, and now that, you know, there's streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and all this stuff where you can watch anime in the original format. So, you know, it's just back then there wasn't that many options, so you can understand a lot of people's, like anger at this. It's just like, man, you know, all the stuff that could happen with One Piece, the potential of this story, and 4Kids gets it and makes all these edits. So you can understand why a lot of people were mad at this. But Alcon's response is, I think they have to understand that because the price of these acquisitions is so high, if they want this programming to come to the United States, they're going to have to accept the fact it's going to be available in two styles. Because the only money that can be made that helps pay for the acquisition is obviously whether or not we're able to outfit it for the masses. So basically, it's like, hey, listen, we're a company, we need to make money. You know, we can't take the properties over here. I mean, we could just dub them the way that, like, uncut, but we couldn't air them on American television, at least not in the time slots. We couldn't do that. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do the thing that makes the most money for this company. And if that means we're going to have to edit things, and like I said, the Westernization stuff, that was more on their end. They didn't have to do that, but they chose to. So that's the one thing I kind of give them crap for. But beyond that, it's just like, hey, listen, we have to do what we do in order to make the most money off of it. That was basically his response. And once again, as the CEO of a company, like, I mean, that's practical, right? And I mean, they did make a lot of money there for a long time, right? So, yeah, that's the case there. So that's pretty much the interview. That's pretty much all the questions. I'm just, like, cycling through these to make sure I didn't miss anything major. But yeah, that's pretty much the interview there with Alcon to give you a little bit more of an idea into the company and the decisions they were making at that time. So, I think as the years went on into the late 20s, So as the years went on, as we started getting into the more of the late 2000s, the internet, of course, became more prolific. Streaming services started to become more prominent. There was even 4Kids.tv. I remember the commercials for that. Yes, 4Kids.tv. You know, there was Jetix, which I don't think Jetix was related to 4Kids. I think that was more of a Cartoon Network streaming service, but I do believe there were maybe 4Kids properties that were streamed over Jetix. There was a lot more of an internet presence, right? Now, this was a good thing because there's more options for 4Kids to let their properties be seen, but also I think a lot more streaming services for anime that were illegal that were popping up as well, so a little bit more competition for them there. So one more thing before I move on to the final part here, I just wanted to talk about a little thing they did in 2007, and that was the show Chaotic. And I'm very convenient here. One of my fans actually sent me a deck of Chaotic cards recently. I opened them up on a fan mail segment, so thank you. I never played this game. I watched the show, although granted I wasn't super into it. Whenever it was on, I would watch an episode, but I watched them very much out of order. It was never a thing that I would be like, you know, every weekend, I have to watch the new episode of Chaotic. There was a few years there where I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And put my cards away and stopped playing Pokemon games, and right around the time I was like halfway through high school, like in 2010, 2011, I was a senior. I was like, screw that. I like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. I'm gonna keep doing that. You know, why did I stop playing this stuff? You know, I was like, got over my little teenage angsty bump there. Everybody goes through a phase, right? But yeah, these are Chaotic cards, and the whole thing with Chaotic that was big was it was a card game, but it was also an online game, once again, playing with that merchandise, and there was even 2 subsidiaries to 4Kids that they created for the sake of that. TC Digital Games and OTC websites that ran up until 2010 when they got shut down. But yeah, this was, once again, playing at the marketing, playing at the merchandising angle, you know? You have a card game that you sell, but also giving an incentive for people to go online and play the card game online with other people. And I think you could also get, like, cards online and stuff, like you type in this, like, code at the bottom. Like, once again, I wasn't really into it. I wonder if people still play Chaotic. I wonder if the servers are still up. You obviously could still play the card game if you had it. You know, I really want to do a video just on the history of the trading card game. All right? Because it really is fascinating when you look at it, okay? Because back in, like, the 80s, trading cards like this, like Chaotic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, Pokemon, didn't exist. All right, trading cards back in the 80s were just like, you know, you'd have like Garbage Pail Kids where you'd like simply just collect them. They were trading cards. You would just trade them. You couldn't play a game with them or anything. You just trade them to have them. And then everything changed with Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering in the very early 90s, you know, had a game where it's like you don't only just trade the cards, you also can play an actual game. And it's not just like a boring game. It's a game that requires like strategy and stuff. And so Magic the Gathering really kicked off this whole trading card game frenzy, and then of course Pokemon, and then Yu-Gi-Oh! Came after that, and so many properties. Like there was a Naruto trading card game, there was a One Piece trading card game, there was Chaotic. The guy that sent me these cards also sent me another deck of cards. They were like all dragon based. I forget, like I forget what they were called, but they were all cards based around dragons. So there was like a dragon playing card game that I didn't even remember, you know. So I really should just do a video on the history of trading card games. But yeah, Chaotic, you know, this was near at the end of when I was watching 4Kids, but I like the show, I like the animation, I like the premise. The main character was Tom Majors, which was a reference to Major Tom from Space Oddity, and I'm a big David Bowie fan, so they get points for that. So yeah, I just wanted to bring up Chaotic. If you guys remember Chaotic, let me know if you played the Chaotic card game, if you went online, if you collected all the cards, if you had the Ballad of the Belittled. Did you have the Ballad of the Belittled? It's a shiny card. It was probably important at one point. And just to close us out on Kon a little bit, I just wanted to talk about where he was at right now. He actually started his own company alongside of his wife called Crane Kon LLC. Jillian Crane is the name of his wife, okay? And then they started that company in 2012, and there was also a subsidiary of that currently exists I was looking into on LinkedIn, and that's Kidtagious. Kidtagious is a subsidiary company of Crane Kon LLC. So I'm like, all right, you know, Kidtagious, that kind of sounds like a weird virus that's spreading, but okay. And the premise of that company is basically, I mean, I'll just give you the company statement right here. You know, it's like talking about Al Kon and how he brought so many amazing properties over here. Like, he's a genius with this. He'll take your, if you have some sort of show or some sort of property in another country and you want it to be licensed, this right here is the man. This is the guy that can do this for you. It is Al Kon. He'll license your stuff for kids and turn it into a mega hit overnight. All right. But to end us out, Kon is also heavily involved with charity work as well, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't bring that up. He serves on the board of directors for the Stephen Gaynor School for Learning Disabilities, the New York Restoration Project, and the Children's Tumor Foundation. The Children's Tumor Foundation, as in the organization that I did the charity stream for last year. That was the first charity stream we ever did. We raised like $7,500 for it. There you go. Even got in the magazine. There's Aiden, who was the guest there that had NF, or neurofibromatosis. He was awesome. We had a fun time talking to him. There's me in the corner, my friend Casey, my friend Zach. First charity stream I ever did. It was a huge success. So there's a strange connection between me and Al Kon, so there you go, right? And that's pretty much it. So moving on now to the final part of this series, this little mini documentary here. This will be the fall of 4Kids, right and proper.
Master Noah, I have terrible news. 4Kids were just delisted from the New York Stock Exchange.
Okay, so I mean, like, if you're expecting this to be some sort of, like, crazy event, you know, like, 4Kids just goes, like, it burns to the ground overnight, and it's like, it's all over, it's all gone, everything we worked for. I mean, that's partially true. I mean, most of the stuff, like most of the properties that they used to own, they don't own anymore. Right now, it's no longer 4Kids, it's the 4 Licensing Corporation, but they no longer own the rights to Pokemon or TMNT, Yu-Gi-Oh! All that stuff is gone. As I mentioned, 4Kids Productions, which was the production company, the subsidiary of 4Kids from earlier, I'll throw up the diagram so you make sense out of all this. In 2012, that's when they filed for bankruptcy the first time. At that time, Konami purchased 4Kids Productions and renamed it 4K Media, and then again, just recently in 2019, they changed it to Konami Cross Media, just to show that Konami is the parent company now, no longer 4Kids. So Konami has acquired the licenses to Yu-Gi-Oh! In the US, you know, and also you have the Pokemon Corporation that owns distribution to Pokemon in the US, okay? So 4Kids no longer owns the rights to any of these shows. So the downfall of 4Kids actually came from Yu-Gi-Oh! From what I understand, and a lot of this stuff, I'm sure, like, there's documents and documents on this, but a lot of it is about, like, legal jargon and stuff that I'm just not going to understand. But from what I get from this, then from 4Kids running the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, they owed the original company, company that owned Yu-Gi-Oh! In Japan, royalties for that. Something like $5 million that 4Kids just did not pay, or rather they maybe could not have paid it. They just didn't have the money for it because they weren't in a great position at that time. And so for that reason, they filed for bankruptcy at the time. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So it's basically saying, hey, the debts that we owe, outweigh our assets, so there's no way we could possibly pay this back. We're filing for bankruptcy. That's when 4K Media went out there, and a lot of the things that they had got shut down at that point. Their music division, the home video division, did the distribution for all the DVDs and the VHS tapes back in the day. DVDs at this point, obviously. But that all shut down. The ad team department, that got shut down. The UK subsidiary division, that got shut down. And it wasn't looking too good. So they kind of restructured their company into the 4 Licensing Corporation, and that's how they existed for the last few years. But then, again, recently in 2017, they filed for bankruptcy yet again. So, it's kind of easy to look at the company and be like, they still exist. They certainly still exist. It's just that they're nowhere near where they used to be. Like I said, the whole analogy of them on top of the mountain and planting the flag of like, we are the kings of licensing, and then just falling off the side of the mountain into a pit. Like, you're not even at ground level anymore. Like, you're well below ground level. That's not inaccurate, because it just seems right now like it is simply impossible with all the rest of the competition out there, with kind of like the status quo being kind of established with like, Pokemon owns Pokemon, Konami has the rights to Yu-Gi-Oh! All these other properties they had, they no longer own, like all the major properties they own, they might own, maybe they still own the rights to Vampires, I don't know, that show that in the Summit Media Group, maybe they still own the rights to that, but like TMNT, Ultimate Muscle, all the shows that they got, really Sonic X, all that stuff, they don't own the rights to those anymore. And they're not really much of a very prominent company. So right now, I mean, it really does seem like they're just kind of like fade into obscurity to the point where like the company could shut down permanently tomorrow, and I really don't think anybody would really notice. In fact, it might be one of those things like the Mandela effect, where it's like, let's say 4Kids shuts down tomorrow, like it's done, it's over, 4 Licensing Corporation, whatever you want to call it, it's all done, it's all over. And, people look at the news and they're like, what? I thought that they shut down like 7 years ago. What? Mandela effect? But no, they're still around. But it's not looking too hot for them. Like I said, Al Khan, he left. He's no longer the CEO. He passed off the CEO to a guy named Michael Goldstein. Don't know that much about him. But yeah, the company as it stands right now, it's just a shell. And it's sad, I guess, if you look back at 4Kids, at what it was and the stuff that you liked. I mean, I liked Yu-Gi-Oh!, I liked Pokemon, and hey, it still exists. You can go on and you can watch that stuff. It's just they're not owned by 4Kids anymore. But the dubs of those things still exist. It's kind of like it is kind of even sadder when you look at it. It's like 4Kids, like it went bankrupt, and then it's like Carcass got picked clean. Like all these other corporations came in and just being like, all right, what's the most valuable valuable stuff you still own. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! We'll pluck that. We'll pluck all the valuable stuff out of you that we could possibly make money on in other respects or other ways to do it. And then we'll just leave you a husk and just to dry out in the sun. And that's where we're at right now. That's the current state of 4 Licensing Corporation. So, I mean, like, I hope they do good. I honestly do. Like, I hope that they could at least maybe climb back up a little bit to get back to surface level. They're never going to get back on top of the mountain again. Like, that would be nothing short of a miracle. Nothing short of, like, the current CEO finding a magic lamp and rubbing it, and, like, the genie pops out and, like, speak, mortal, and let me know what you would have of me. And, like, I want 4 Licensing Corporation to be the #1 licensing corporation again. Take us back to Pokemon. Give us all the rights to Yu-Gi-Oh! And TMNT and all this crazy properties back, you know, and the genie would be like, I don't know, that's gonna be a tough one. I'll give it my best shot. And then boom, but nothing short of that. They're never gonna get back on the tippity top. But maybe they might get back up on like the first like rung of the mountain. You know, like okay, we're back. We got a few anime that we're still licensing. We can maybe make this work. But I guess we'll see what happens, because ever since they filed for that bankruptcy last in 2017, there's really not much more information about them, or rather, it's just nobody cares, maybe. And so that's the story of 4Kids. Not even so much of a burnout, but more of just like a fadeaway. You know, it's just like, at the time, it was the best thing that a lot of people had, like, to watch Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! It was, like, the only option you had. It was either that or pretty much nothing. Like, keep in mind, like, it's the year 2002, and you want to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, there's the Japanese version, but unless you live in Japan, or you have connections in Japan to, like, import Japanese DVDs and VHS, and you can understand Japanese, you can't just log on to the internet or the World Wide Web back in the day and, like, go on a streaming website and watch videos of Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, even if they existed back then, it's dial-up. It would be horribly slow. So it was pretty much just 4Kids dub or nothing. Pokemon, 4Kids dub or nothing, and that's it. So it was the best we got, but then as the years went on, the internet improved, a lot more services became available, streaming became just nothing, it was really easy to stream things, other companies started becoming more prominent, like Funimation, and the rest is history, as they say. So, thank you guys for watching this little 2-part mini-documentary I did, you know, and let me know below what your favorite 4Kids show and 4Kids memory was. This will be Tekking101, signing out. Okay, I'm not ending the video like that. I just look stupid. All right, Tekking101 signing out.